We've been looking at some different real-world examples of how we use proportions, how we use percents. This section is going to cover two things that many adults use on a daily basis. If you talk to your parents, they'll say, yep, we use that on a daily basis. Some of your parents won't use this first thing, but almost all of them will use the second thing that we're going to talk about. If you ever plan on buying anything bigger than, say, $50, more expensive than $50, you'll probably use something that we're going to cover today. A large portion of you will use on a regular basis, like every day almost, this first thing we're talking about. This is something that will be a part of your life. It won't be a part of your life as a 7th grader, most likely. It probably won't be in your life as an 8th grader, but it will be a part of your life. And so we are going to be talking about it. We're going to be looking at the math behind it, and we'll build on it from there. First thing we're going to be looking at, I'm going to have you fill this in. We're looking at commission. Commission, and if you talk to some of your parents, not all of them, but some of your parents will know exactly what this is. A commission is money that's paid to a person or a company for making a sale. The idea is, like, when I get paid, I don't get paid by commission. I don't get paid based on the A's that you get. I get paid, and I have to do a lot of work, but I don't get paid based on how well you do on the MCA. However, if I were selling copiers, if I was selling cell phones, one way to try and encourage employees to work harder is to make sure that their pay depends on how many cell phones they sell. Now, that's both good and bad. One of the bad things about that is if somebody doesn't want to buy a cell phone, the salesperson is in trouble because they don't get paid then. If it's a bad month, there's really bad weather and people just aren't going out, the roads are bad, and they're just not going into stores to buy cell phones, they're not gonna be bringing home too much pay, that salesperson. So there are very good things about it, there are very bad things about it. But commission is some percent of how much you sell. So the more you sell, the more money you make. One thing, and it's in big yellow and red here, but it's on black and white on your paper, it says you must convert a percent to a decimal or a fraction before you do any calculations with it. We saw that before. We're going to keep talking about it. Don't just put a percent in your equation and hope that it works. So the way commission works, we're going to do some examples here. Mr. Cortez earns a base salary of $26,000. So that means that if he's selling cars, or it doesn't say what he's selling here, but we'll say cars. Doesn't matter if nobody comes into the store that month, he's still going to get or that year, I guess, he's still going to get a base salary of $26,000. That's just a little over minimum wage. So he's going to get his $26,000 no matter what, plus, because it says here plus a sales commission of 5%. That means that whatever he sells for the year, however much money in cars he sells for the year, he's going to get 5% of that to take home. So if his total sales for 1 year were $300,000, he's going to get 5%. I'm going to write this above it here. 5% of $300,000. That's what he's going to get. So 5%, again, if I'm going to use a percent, I have to change that to either a fraction or a decimal, because I'm going to use a calculator. I'm going to make it a decimal. So I'm going to go to the left, there we go, and 0.05 of, we said of means multiplication, $300,000. So he's going to get 5% of $300,000 plus the $26,000 that he earned as his base salary. And if we do the math here, we're going to get 26,000. We got to multiply first, remember. So we get 26,000 plus 15,000. Did I put enough zeros there? Yes, 15,000 equals his total pay for the year, $41,000. So that's his total pay for the year. That's not bad. $41,000, very nice living wage. $26,000, just a little bit over minimum wage. And so if he didn't sell those cars, he would be in trouble. But he did sell quite a bit and got $41,000 for his take-home pay. And that's how this commission works. So if somebody gets a base salary, they don't always, but if somebody gets a base salary, you're going to add that to, and this is where the commission part comes in, whatever percent times the sales. So the percent times the sales. It's 5% of the sales. Try this one. It's the same idea, same type of setup. See if you can figure out what the total pay for the week in which her sales were $940. So we know her sales, we know the commission rate of 12%, and we get a base salary or a base salary of $350. Assuming you paused it, assuming you tried it on your own. Some of you are just watching this video and not following along with your notes. You're not going to learn it very well that way. The total cost for this one, the total pay for this one, she earned $462.80. If you didn't get that answer, make sure you watch the video and see how it's done. All right, the second thing, this is something that all of you will deal with. I can almost guarantee that all of you will deal with this. We're going to be looking at interest, simple interest. We're going to start with simple interest. If you go to a bank right now, or if you actually get a loan for something right now, you'll probably get involved in what's called complex or compound interest, which is much more complex. We're just going to be doing it with simple interest. But simple interest is how much money is the amount of money that's charged for borrowing money or the amount of money that you get for investing money. The idea is if you put money into the bank, as a thank you, the bank will give you extra money. It will give you your money back plus a little bit extra. Same thing with stocks. If you invest in a company, that's where we have that idea of investment. Here, investing money. If you invest in a company and buy stock, you get your money back, plus you get a little bit extra, assuming the stocks do well. And so that extra is called interest. There's some vocabulary we're going to be looking at. Principal. Principal is not Mr. Kovach in this case. Principal is the amount borrowed or invested. So if I if I invest in a company, if I invest $300,000 into a company, I'm loaded. I'm going to give somebody $300,000 to start their company. Then I want that $300,000 back plus a little bit extra. So I'm going to get that principal back. That's how much I invested. But then I want the interest too. I want the extra. So simple interest is paid on that principal amount. So we've got this formula. I equals PERT. Know it, love it. I equals PERT. It's the simple interest formula. I is the simple interest. So you can write that down. P is the principal. R is the rate, the interest rate. But again, it's the interest rate per year as a decimal. We have to change our percents to a decimal. So the interest rate is a percent, but we have to change it to a decimal in this formula. T is time in years, and that is important as time in years. Go ahead and pause it and fill those in if you need to. But it is important that it's time in years. So if T, go ahead and fill that in, if T represents time in years, 1 month is not the same as 1 year. 1 month is 1/12 of a year. Why that's important is if you borrow money for 6 months, that's not the same as 6 years. So 6 months is really half of a year, or 6/12. If you borrow money for 4 months, you have 4/12, or 1/3 of a year. 5 months, 5/12. And so if they're talking about months in the problem, make sure you're thinking about it as how much of a year is this? And we'll look at some examples of that. Okay, first problem. Find the simple interest paid for 3 years on a $2,500 loan at 11.5% per year. So I borrowed money to buy a snowmobile, a cheap snowmobile, $2,500, and the bank says, okay, we'll give you that money for 3 years, but you have to pay us that $2,500 back and 11.5% per year. So we're going to use our formula to figure out how much extra I'm going to have to pay. Go ahead and write this down. I equals PERT. Know it, love it. I equals PERT. We've got our formula. The interest, we don't know the interest. That's what we're trying to find. Because it's find the simple interest. We know the principal. He's downstairs, Mr. Kovach. The principal is how much we're borrowing. So the principal, $2,500. The rate, we know the rate. The rate is 11.5%, but again, we have to change that to a decimal. So if I do to the left, 0.115, and the time 3 years, and it's already set up in years, so I'm good to go there. I don't have to change anything. Once I have that formula filled in, I can get the answer. 2,500 times 0.115 times 3, and I'm going to get $862.50. So what that means in context of the problem, I borrowed $2,500 to buy a snowmobile. The bank said, okay, here you go, you can have that money, but in 3 years' time, you have to pay that $2,500 back plus an extra $862.50. So this is the answer to the problem, but just as a side question, how much did I really have to pay for that snowmobile? Well, I'd have to pay the full $2,500 plus an extra $50. And this is where people get in really big trouble with credit cards, because they don't realize that that $2,500 bill is really going to cost them $3,362.50. Skip this one. I want you to try this next one on your own. So find this one in your notes. I skipped one. I want you to find the simple interest earned after 2 years on an investment of $3,000 at 4.5% interest earned annually. So you're going to do the same idea. I equals PERT. Pause it. See if you can figure it out. I'm assuming you paused it. I'm assuming you tried it on your own. Again, don't just skip through this process. Try it first, even if you get it wrong. It's okay to get it wrong as long as we fix our mistakes. I equals PERT is my formula. I don't know the, oh, I'm sorry. I forget. I apologize. The final answer for this one, $270. If you didn't get that, watch the linked video and see how it's done. Skipping back to the one I missed, we've got another problem here. It says after 6 months, the simple interest earned on an investment of $5,000 was $45. This is going to be a long one, sorry. Find the interest rate. So I'm still going to use my formula. I equals PERT. I'm going to fill this in. It says after 6 months. Okay, so I know the time. Time is not 6, but the time is a half. Half of a year. 6 months is half of a year. Since I'm using a calculator, I'm going to use a decimal, 0.5. The rate, I don't know the rate. It says find the interest rate. I don't know R. The principal, there are $2 amounts here. We know that the simple interest earned on an investment of $5,000 was $45. So what I see here is the simple interest was $45. The simple interest earned was $45. The investment was $5,000. On that very first page, or this page right, stop it, this page right here, it said that the principal was the amount borrowed or invested. So the amount that was invested was $5,000. So my principal is going to be $5,000. The interest, the simple interest earned, was $45. So the hardest part of this problem, I'm hoping, the hardest part of this problem is figuring out where to put the numbers in the formula. The interest, in this case, was $45. That's how much extra I earned. The principal was $5,000. That's how much I invested into this other company. We'll call it, I don't know, Jack's Taco Stand. So I'm going to invest in Jack's Taco Stand, and I gave him $5,000. So here you go, Jack. Here's $5,000. Start your taco stand. You have awesome tacos. Make this happen. But in 6 months' time, I want that money back. I want to get my $5,000 back, and I want an interest, and I want to get an interest on that too. So we're trying to figure out what that interest rate was that I asked for. So now we've got our formula. I'm going to solve for R. So if I'm going to solve for R, it's got times and times here. So I've got two things being multiplied times R. So really, I can combine some like terms. I've got a 5,000 and I've got a 0.5. I can combine those together. What's 5,000 times a half? Well, half of 5,000 is 2,500 times R equals 45. That's one thing I could do. It's not the only way to get the answer, but that's one thing. Divide both sides then by 2,500. And I get an answer of 0.018. Now that's not quite the final answer though. We have an R, we have a rate, but it's not as a percent yet. Remember, our calculators don't give us percents, they give us decimals. So we go to the left, to the right, to the right. I get 1.8%. That's my rate for R. That one was a little more complicated. It takes some practice. I'm gonna have you do one, try it on the Google form, and then we'll do more practice in class with the bookwork, but it's important that you do those practice problems. Okay, give this one a try on your own. See if you can get figure out what the principle was. All right, the correct answer for this one is that the principal, the amount that was borrowed, it's a loan, the amount that was borrowed, $7,650. If you didn't get that answer, watch the linked video, take that extra step, and then try a few on your own. Make sure you're asking lots of questions either on the Google form or in class.